Yo, what's up YouTube? I hope all of you are having a great day so far. In today's upload, we are going to be going over the best controller settings in Season 4 of Warzone. So in my previous video, I went over all the best graphics settings for PC users. And so if you have a PC and you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you go check out that video. I guarantee your FPS will get boosted. And just before we go into these settings, if you find this video helpful at any point, I'd really appreciate if you'd hit that like button. And if you are new to the channel and you enjoy content like this and you want the best class setups in Warzone, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. But without further ado, let's get right into these settings. So to start things off, we are going to be going over the general settings, and so I actually already covered this in my previous video, and so if you watched the previous video, make sure you just skip past this part because it's the same thing. For the field of view, the higher you increase this, the more you can see around you, but the harder it is to see your enemies because it's going to make your enemies smaller. So if you're not the best player, I recommend not having this past 100 just so it's a little bit easier to hit the enemies. The only reason I have mine at 120 is because I think of myself as like a pretty decent player, and so I can actually hit my shots at 120, and I like to have like the nice movement at close range, makes it a little bit easier to see the enemies. For the brightness, you just want to do what this says, so I have mine at barely visible. I just moved this up until that was barely visible. For the vertical and the horizontal HUD, I just have mine at 100. This doesn't really matter, it's all personal preference. For the on-demand texture streaming, you want to make sure this is on disabled. For the HUD, you want to make sure this is on square, just because if you have this on circle and there's like an enemy right here, if you have the square you can see them, but if you have the circle you won't be able to see them, and so pretty much just by having square you can see more enemies. For the minimap rotation, you want to make sure this is on enabled. So that is going to wrap it up for the general area. For the audio section, so for the audio mix, if you want to hear the loudest footsteps, you want to make sure this is on boost low. Boost high is good, but if you want to maximize the audio of the footsteps, you want to make sure you do boost low. For the master volume, I have mine at 100. For the music volume, I have mine at 0. For the dialogue volume, I have mine at 20. I'm actually going to increase this a little bit just because your operator does say some things that are actually helpful. For the effects volume, you want to make sure this is at 100 just to maximize that footstep sound. For the Juggernaut music, doesn't matter. All these don't really matter too much, and so I'm just going to skip past all these. You can copy them if you want, but it doesn't really matter. And so yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the audio section. Now for the controller area. So for the BR button layout, since I have a Xbox Elite controller with paddles and I don't play claw, I just have mine on default. If I were to play claw, I'd probably have mine on tactical, or if I didn't play claw, I'd probably do like bumper jumper or stick and move. And so I would just mess with these and figure out which one's best for you. The reason people mess with it is just so they don't have to take the time to like move their thumb off the joystick to the button. They just want to be able to like click down on the right stick to jump instead of going from here to jump. Just makes it so you can have better movement. For the stick layout preset, just default. For the invert vertical look, disabled. For the dead zone, if you see yourself having stick drift where like the center of your screen starts to move by itself, you just want to increase this until that stops moving. For the horizontal and vertical sensitivity, in my opinion, I think 6.6 or 7.7, maybe 8.8 is going to be the best one. If you notice, every single pro controller player, well, pretty much like 90% of every controller player, they all have 6 to 7 when they play on 120 FOV, and that is just because at close range engagements against good players, you need to be able to hit your shots, or at long range, you need to be able to hit your shots. And so having 7.7 or 8.8 or 6.6 makes it a lot easier to hit your shots, and you still can move pretty quick and you still can do 180s. And so I advise you guys to do 6.6 or 7.7, but in the end, it is all personal preference, and so whatever works out best for you works out best for you. So if you like 2020, then I would do 2020, but I'm just saying for the average population, 6.6 or 7.7 is going to work the best if you have 120 FOV. If you got the 80 FOV, then I would probably do like 1010 because FOV is correlated with your sensitivity a little bit. For the ADS sensitivity, low zoom and high zoom, you want to make sure this is at 1.0 and then just move it from there based on how you do in your gunfights. If you see yourself missing lots of shots, then I would just lower it. Some people like to have the high zoom different than the low zoom just for some reason. It's just, you know, it's all personal preference, and so pretty much just go through these and find which ones work best for you. If you are a sniper, you might want to have this at 1.1 or like 1.0 just so you can do those flick shots, but if you don't snipe too often, 0.75 or like 0.85 should just work perfectly for you. For the aim response curve type, you want to do dynamic. This is the best one. If you're not the best player, like if you're a beginner, then I recommend doing standard, but if you're a pretty good player, then I would do dynamic. For the controller vibration, you want to make sure this is on disabled just because less things vibrating in your hand should lead to you hitting more shots. For most of my life, I had vibration on, but about a year or 2 years ago, I turned it off and I just found myself hitting more shots. For the aim assist, this is kind of weird, and so you just want to do standard. Again, if you're a beginner player, you might want to do focusing, but for most players, you just want to do standard. For the scale aim assist with FOV, you want to make sure this is on enable. You'll get more accurate aim assist because it's going to be just on the enemies rather than like around them. So for example, if you don't have it on scaled, you'll see that this box is way bigger, and so you'll get aim assist in like these areas on the enemy. So if you're trying to track someone, sometimes you'll get stuck right here or like stuck right here, but if you have it on scaled, it'll be a little bit smaller, but the tracking will be a lot easier because you'll only get aim assist where you really need it. You don't really really want aim assist in these areas, yeah, it'll help you kind of lock on or flick onto your enemies, but just in general, you only want the aim assist actually on the enemy. For the use/reload behavior, you want to make sure this is on contextual tap. This will just make it so you can loot really quick, except for when you want to reload your gun, you just have to hold your reload button instead of tapping it. For the depleted ammo weapon switch, you want this on enabled. For the armor plate behavior, I have mine on apply all, but this is all personal preference. If you like apply one, then I would just do apply one, but for me, I like doing apply all. For the movement, so for the slide behavior, if you want the best movement in the game, you want to make sure you do this on tap. It's going to make your movement way more swift. For the auto move forward, disabled. For the automatic sprint, if you find yourself doing lots of slide cancels, if you're a pretty good player on the movement, then you want to do the automatic tactical sprint. It'll make your movement way easier, and you won't really break your joysticks because you won't click them as much. But say you're just a casual, you don't really do slide cancels, you don't really care about the movement, then I would just keep this on disabled. And lastly, for the parachute auto deploy, you just want to make sure this is on disabled, just so you can get as close to the floor as possible and pull your chute. So if there's a ground loot gun and you're flying in from the sky, you got someone behind you, you're more likely to actually get the gun, or you're more likely to pancake at times. But if you pretty much just want to be able to land as close to the bottom as possible, you just want to make sure this is on disabled, but you will be pancaking a lot more. So with all that said, that's going to wrap it up for the best settings in Season 4 of Warzone. If you found this video helpful at all, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like button. But without further ado, I hope all of you have a great rest of your day, and I will hopefully see you in my next video.